Have you ever looked at an old photograph of yourself and felt a strange emotional distance, as if you were observing someone you once knew but no longer recognize? The face is familiar, the posture unmistakable, yet something feels altered beneath the surface. The eyes seem different, carrying a softness or innocence that no longer exists. In that quiet moment, you realize that the person you were no longer lives inside you the same way. And that realization can feel unsettling because it confirms something most people try to avoid acknowledging. You have changed, not suddenly, not dramatically, but in ways that reshaped your inner world without asking for permission. Change rarely arrives with clarity. It doesn't announce itself as growth or improvement. It begins quietly, in the pauses between reactions, in the moments where something that once mattered no longer holds the same weight. You notice that certain conversations exhaust you, that old ambitions feel strangely hollow, that silence feels safer than explanation. You don't wake up as someone new. You simply stop being who you were trying to be. Psychologically, this kind of change often feels like loss before it feels like freedom. That's because identity is not just an idea. It is a system built from habits, emotional patterns, beliefs, and survival strategies learned over time. When that system begins to dissolve, the nervous system interprets it as danger. You may feel disoriented, detached, or restless without knowing why. The world hasn't shifted, but your internal structure has, and the brain resists that disruption fiercely. Many of these patterns were formed long before adulthood. As children, most of us didn't learn how to be ourselves. We learned how to be acceptable. Somewhere early on, we discovered that love and safety were often conditional approval came when we behaved correctly. Silence reduced conflict. Emotional restraint kept things stable, so we adapted. Not because we were weak, but because we were intelligent. Attachment psychology explains that a child will always choose connection over authenticity because connection equals survival. If expressing certain emotions threatens that bond, those emotions are suppressed over time. This suppression becomes identity. You don't just act responsible, you become responsible. You don't just avoid conflict, you become easygoing. You don't just hide your emotions, you become strong. What began as survival slowly hardened into personality. Adulthood often doesn't break this pattern, it refines it. The stage becomes larger, the expectations heavier, but the performance continues. You learn which version of yourself gets rewarded and you repeat it. Carl Jung called this the persona, the social mask we wear to function in the world. At first, it serves a purpose. It helps you succeed. It protects vulnerability. It creates structure. But over time, the mask becomes heavy. What once felt like armor begins to feel like a cage. You may find yourself achieving goals that no longer satisfy you, receiving praise that feels strangely empty, being admired without feeling understood. This is often the moment when exhaustion sets in, not physical exhaustion, but existential fatigue. You are tired of maintaining an identity that no longer aligns with who you are becoming. The brain plays a powerful role in maintaining this identity. It reinforces whatever is repeated. Thoughts you think often become default beliefs. Emotional reactions you rehearse become automatic. Neuroscience calls this neuroplasticity. What fires together, wires together. Over time, these patterns don't just shape behavior, they shape identity. You don't simply have habits. You become them. This is why change feels so difficult. You are not fighting a lack of motivation. You are challenging deeply ingrained neural pathways designed to keep you safe. But the same brain that learned fear can learn freedom. Change begins not with force, but with interruption. A pause before reacting. A moment of awareness before old habits take control. A willingness to sit with discomfort instead of escaping it. In that space, identity begins to loosen. There comes a point in deep transformation where the old self begins to collapse. It doesn't happen with clarity or relief. It happens quietly. The things that once defined you feel foreign. Relationships feel misaligned. Even your own thoughts seem unfamiliar. This phase is often mistaken for depression, but it is different. You are not losing energy. You are losing attachment to what no longer fits. Mystics called this the dark night of the soul. Psychologists may describe it as ego dissolution. The brain, wired for predictability, panics when it senses the loss of familiar structure. It floods you with doubt and fear, urging you to return to old identities simply to restore stability. But what feels like destruction is often pruning. Old connections dissolving to make space for new ones. Old roles dying so something more honest can emerge. One of the most painful aspects of transformation is how others respond to it. People grow accustomed to who you were when it served them, your consistency, your predictability, your compliance. When you change, it disrupts their sense of order. Even those who care about you may resist your evolution, not out of malice, but out of discomfort. Your growth reflects their stagnation, and not everyone is ready to face that mirror. Philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre called this living in bad faith, the lie that identity is fixed. Society rewards consistency and punishes deviation. You are praised for staying the same, questioned when you evolve. But transformation is not rebellion. It is survival. And survival often requires leaving environments that no longer allow you to breathe. This is where loneliness emerges. The loneliness of becoming. You no longer fit where you used to belong, but you haven't yet found where you're meant to be. Conversations feel hollow. Familiar places feel distant. You may even miss old versions of yourself, including the wounded ones, because pain, when familiar, can feel like home. Psychologists call this identity loss, when the internal world changes faster than the external one. Yet slowly, the silence begins to shift. What once felt empty begins to feel spacious. The nervous system calms as it learns that safety doesn't come from performance anymore. You begin rebuilding, not dramatically, but quietly. You set boundaries without explanation. You listen to your body instead of overriding it. You allow emotions instead of suppressing them. Integration begins when you stop rejecting parts of yourself. Anger, fear, desire, and grief are no longer enemies. They are signals. Neuroscience shows that emotional awareness literally rewires the brain toward resilience. Presence replaces avoidance. Compassion replaces control. You don't become fearless. You become grounded enough to move with fear beside you. Transformation, you realize, is not about becoming someone else. It is about remembering who you were before adaptation became survival. The curiosity, the honesty, the emotional clarity. They were never lost, only buried beneath layers of protection. With awareness, you begin to unearth them. You look back at the versions of yourself that had to exist and feel something new, not shame, not regret, understanding. Every breakdown was not failure. It was restructuring. Every ending was not loss. It was preparation. Nature itself grows through collapse. Stars collapse to create light. Forests burn to renew soil. Old forms disintegrate to make space for life. Transformation is not gentle. It is disorienting, raw, and necessary. Carl Jung called this individuation, the process of becoming whole. Not perfect, not polished, but integrated. The phoenix does not rise despite the ashes. It rises because of them. And one day, you realize that even when you felt broken, lost, or burning, you were never ashes. You were always the fire.